Guys, I forgot how funny Crash Twinsanity is. When I think about it, it just makes me want to explode. When people talk about Crash Bandicoot, they usually talk about the original trilogy. Maybe Warped, maybe Crash Team Racing, maybe... Wait, who's that supposed to be? But not enough people talk about the fact that Crash Twinsanity might actually be the funniest game in the entire series. Not the best one, not the most polished one, not the one with the tightest platforming, the funniest one. And after going back to it, I honestly think that there's a really strong case for that. Most Crash games are goofy. That has always been part of the appeal. Crash himself is basically a living cartoon sound effect. The whole series is built on slapstick, exaggerated reactions, ridiculous enemies, and cartoon chaos. But Twinsanity feels different. This is the game where Crash stopped being just a cartoony platformer series and became something that felt like it was actively trying to make you laugh every few minutes. A big part of that is Cortex. In most Crash games, Cortex is just the villain. In Twinsanity, he becomes this miserable, dramatic, constantly suffering side character, and that changes everything. Instead of just being the bad guy, he becomes the setup for half the game's comedy. He complains nonstop. He gets dragged into situations he clearly wants no part of. He gets humiliated over and over again. And the best part is that Crash really doesn't care. Crash just keeps moving forward while Cortex completely falls apart beside him. That pairing is what makes the game work. Crash is pure chaos. Cortex is a bitter man having the worst day of his life. That contrast does so much for the comedic heavy lifting. Let's spin into Cortex's misery montage.
My crystal! How could things get any worse?
Honestly, Cortex might be the most relatable he has ever been in this game. Because if I got tied to Crash Bandicoot and used as a blunt object for several hours, I'd also be screaming the whole time. The other reason Twinsanity is so funny is that its humor is incredibly physical. Crash has always had slapstick, but Twinsanity pushes it way harder. Characters get flung around, smacked into things, chased, panicked, embarrassed, and thrown into the dumbest possible situations. The animations are bigger, the reactions are more exaggerated, and the game constantly turns movement itself into a joke. That matters because comedy in games is all about timing. Sometimes the joke is not even the line somebody says. It is the pause before something stupid happens. The original trilogy is charming, but the humor usually sits in the background while the gameplay takes center stage. In Twinsanity, the humor feels like one of the main goals. Then, there is the dialogue.
Keep back, you weak-minded fool! Avert your gaze or you'll go crystal crazy!
Twinsanity has this very specific early 2000s cartoon comedy style where everybody is a little too dramatic, a little too mean to each other, and fully committed to how absurd everything is. It is loud, weird, and memorable. And that works for this game, because when people remember Twinsanity, they usually do not remember it just because of the level design or platforming precision. They remember moments. They remember the tone. They remember how weird it felt. That is a huge part of why it sticks with people. And I think that is the key to Twinsanity. It is not the cleanest Crash game, it's not the most polished, but it has such a specific sense of humor, and it commits to it the entire time. That charm is probably why people still have so much affection for it. Because yes, Twinsanity is messy, it was rushed, it has flaws, it has cut content, but it also has one of the clearest identities of any Crash game.
Come now, as we explore a new dimension! It should have been 2 new dimensions, but we ran out of time.
It knows Crash is ridiculous. It knows Cortex is ridiculous. It knows this whole world is ridiculous. And instead of trying to smooth that out, it builds the entire experience around it. That is why, even when the game stumbles, it stays memorable. So now, I'm not saying Twinsanity is the best Crash game ever made, but I do think it might be the funniest. And actually, that is a pretty great thing to be remembered for. That is what makes Twinsanity so special. Not just that it is weird, not just that it is flawed, but that it feels like one of the only Crash games that fully understands how funny this series can be when it really commits to the bit. And Twinsanity absolutely commits to the bit. And that makes it so memorable. Thanks for your time and attention. If you'd like, drop a comment and tell me what Crash game you think is the most funny or memorable. Thanks, y'all, and until next time, crash you later. Wait. What if Crash is actually the villain of Twinsanity? Because this game feels less like an adventure and more like Dr. Cortex having the worst day of his life. Like, it's secretly just a game about making the man suffer as much as possible. And if Crash really is the villain, we'd never know. Because he's always so quiet. Oh well.